Hey, welcome everyone to the UFC 202 six round post fight show. This is me, Zane Simon, for BloodyElbow.com, coming at you live. And man, what a fucking card! What an ending! What a miraculous, great, amazing, awesome fight. For those of you who didn't get to catch it live, Conor McGregor just beat Nate Diaz via majority decision, 5 rounds, 48-47 on 2 cards, 47-47 on 1 card. Judges gave Diaz a 10-8 round 3, which is not a questionable call at all. I didn't score at 10-8. I thought Conor got a few shots in, enough to make it a 10-9, but other people scored at 10-8. I wouldn't argue with that. 48-47, 47-47. Both those cards are right to me. That said, Conor McGregor comes away the winner, and that that's great for fans because he and Diaz both want to do this fight again. And after this, I cannot imagine not wanting to watch this fight again. Conor McGregor came in with an absolutely brilliant, picture-perfect game plan for how to fight Diaz early. Lots and lots of leg kicks, just working behind his jab, throwing, the occasional 1-2, stick and move, in and out, beating up Nate Diaz's legs early, really limiting his movement, dropped Nate Diaz several times, in big part because he had Diaz guessing so much on whether McGregor was coming in with a punch or with a kick. And when Diaz is guessing like that, he couldn't roll in the way that he is used to for deflecting those blows and taking him. And so he took some big, clean shots early. Problem is, as we've seen in so many Diaz fights before, to beat a Diaz at a ridiculous pace, and you have to do it round after round after round. And as we got late into the second round, McGregor couldn't. That pace started to fade. By the time he hit the third round, he looked dead tired, and I was absolutely sure that he was going to be just either barely surviving the rest of the fight or get knocked out again or tapped again, basically an extended version of the second fight, because he started slower and with a better plan and limited Diaz's movement more. So that third round was bad. He was barely hanging on, barely survived it. Like I say, landed a few shots, never went down, but just bad. And then he rallied back for this amazing fourth round, came back, took over that round, lost the fifth round, but that's rounds 1, 2, and 4 for him, and 3 and 5 for Diaz. So even with the 10, like I say, 10-8, you get a draw. 10-9, McGregor wins, and they'll set up a third fight down the road. Dana White's talking about he wants McGregor to go down and fight Aldo now. He says that's the fight they're doing, win or lose, against Diaz. But McGregor, after this fight, he said, "Surprise, surprise, motherfuckers," and that he's the king is back. And his attitude about working with the UFC, I mean, he may not want to go back down to 145. That may not happen. He hasn't shown any real interest in that fight. He said beforehand that Jose Aldo looks like the same fighter he beat the last time. He's not interested in that fight at all. The UFC would really have to make it sweet for him. So whether or not we see McGregor Aldo next, especially coming off this win where he feels like he's got a lot more to work with than if he'd come off a loss, it's very questionable. Moving down the card, Anthony Johnson knocked the hell out of Glover Teixeira. 13-second knockout, first round. Man, DC and John Jones are about the only fighters in that division that seem to have the kind of chin you need to survive Anthony Johnson. Teixeira's been looking great lately, but he really likes to wait on opponents and try and counter. He's got a very predictable set of punches he throws: left hook, right uppercut. And you just can't wait on Johnson. I mean, even DC got floored in that fight, had to come back, wrestle Johnson, put him in danger. I didn't see Glover being the guy to wrestle him and put him in that kind of danger, and he didn't. He got knocked out cold in 13 seconds. Beautiful knockout for Rumble. Makes him the new #1 contender now. He's going to fight DC again. He's obviously got a very good shot of beating DC, just like he's got a good shot of beating anyone within the first 3 minutes, 5 minutes of a fight. But we've seen this fight before too, so got to imagine DC is going to be the favorite. It's also probably just, if you're DC, it's the toughest potential title challenger you could get that's not John Jones, and that can't be all that fun to look forward to, having to beat that guy again. Before that, Donald Cerrone put on what may be the most complete performance of his career against Rick Story. I mean, Donald Cerrone's had great fights before. I don't want to say this is like his master class or anything. He's beat Edson Barboza. He's beat Benson Henderson. He's gotten big wins, but he absolutely controlled his range and timing and combination striking in a way against Rick Story that I don't know I've ever seen from him. What he finished him with, it was a head-body combo that then set Story up for a head kick as Story was leaning down into the body shot. That was just masterful. And Cerrone looks absolutely fantastic at 170. I think he said before the fight, apparently he wants to fight 50 times in the UFC. That's his 22nd fight, and he's added so much veteran craft to his game. I don't know that he'll ever make 50, but it's going to be so much fun to watch him try. He says he wants a lightweight title shot. Considering Alvarez, he's already beat Alvarez, and that Alvarez is also himself not all that interested in fighting #1 contender in his division. Cerrone might be that might be a fight that they'll make. Donald Cerrone versus Eddie Alvarez. It would certainly be, it would probably be more exciting from a fan perspective than Alvarez versus Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov's got a big following, but Cerrone's been, he's really crafted himself into a fan favorite. For that, Mike Perry made a amazing debut, knocking out Youngyu Lim. Lim has always been incredibly powerful and hittable, but really dynamic. And Perry's super raw, super early in his career. I think he's only like 24. Yeah, he's only 24. He's only had 7 pro fights, and he has never faced anything like the level of competition that Youngyu Lim was supposed to propose. But Perry's a great athlete with real power, and he caught just the right shots to put on Lim and knocked him out. Really great debut. Really interested to see what he can do going forward. He's at a small camp out in Florida, so he may have to move to something bigger to really develop, but he's obviously a great athletic potential talent to watch. For that, Tim Means put it on Saba Homasi. Homasi started strong, came out with a lot of power, really torquing into everything. Hit Means a lot early, but started to gas really quickly. First, 3 minutes of round 1, he was breathing hard. And Means is super tough, just kind of took over in the clinch especially and started to pick Homasi apart with knees and elbows towards a really fantastic TKO finish, just throwing everything in but the kitchen sink at Homasi for a TKO in the middle of round 2. It's great to see Means back. He looked really good in that fight. Omasi's got power, but that's just a really big ask to jump straight into the welterweight division for your first fight and face Tim Means. Interesting to see what he can do if he takes a step back. Closing out the Fox Sports 1 card, running in reverse still, Cody Garbrandt beat Takaya Mizugaki, 48-second knockout. Garbrandt continues to look like an absolute beast of a title contender in that division. Not sure beating Mizugaki like that makes him absolutely ready for Dominic Cruz, but it makes him the most exciting challenger in that division for Cruz. And it's just, he looked fantastic. He's got that same kind of power and swagger that McGregor had coming up. He doesn't quite talk the same game, but he looks just, he puts so much power and precision on his punches. Mizugaki's always been a tough out. I think Cruz is one of the only other guys to stop him, especially to stop him early. Let's see. Yeah, he's got an early TKO stop it loss in Japan and a technical sub to Uriah Faber, and otherwise Dominic Cruz and Cody Garbrandt are his. Oh, and that sub to Sterling, but Garbrandt and Cruz are his only recent KO losses, and this one from Garbrandt was super impressive. Looked really good, really sharp. Threw a little silly shit to start out. He had like a leg sweep and then like jumping side kick or something, but the moment he settled down, just absolutely great. Prior to that, Raquel Pennington took a workwoman, I guess you'd say, decision over Elizabeth Phillips, just kind of ground out a win. No real dynamic moments in the fight except for a big couple of slams by Pennington, but she just generally had the better part of all the exchanges in the fight, better parts of the clinch, better parts from range to get a decision. She called out Kat Zingano afterward, which is fine. It just doesn't, I'm not any more excited for Pennington after that fight. It wasn't amazing, but it's a consistent win for somebody who's trying to build up a head of steam in women's featherweight, or in women's bantamweight, rather. And that division can always use more fighters on a win streak. For that, Artem Lobov beat Chris Avila in an absolutely terrible, terrible fight. An SBG versus 209 Cesar Gracie sort of taste, an appetizer for the main event, but not a good one at all. For as great as McGregor versus Diaz was, Avila versus Lobov was just awful. Lobov was way, way, way better than Avila, who isn't ready for UFC competition at all, but still Lobov wasn't able to put him away or hurt him really badly, just beat him up slowly over 3 rounds of bad kickboxing. So less said about that, the better. For that, Courtney Casey got a big win to start out the FS1 prelims over Randa Marcos. Easily the biggest win of Casey's career. Really came out and bullied Marcos physically early. Gave up position going for a submission as the round was winding down, but was able to turn that into a great armbar and tap Marcos out. Casey's got the physical tools. She's got the size to be something in that division. She needs a lot more control and seasoning in her game, but Marcos was supposed to be a prospect in that division, and she doesn't seem to be panning out. So that's a big win for Casey, who's kind of replacing her as a strong, physical, bullying fighter who might have enough potential to challenge some of the better top-tier talent down the road. Closing out the Fight Pass prelims, Lorenz Larkin absolutely murdered Neil Magny. Just a fantastic kicking attack, beat up Magny's legs, broke him down, and then just forced Magny, because Magny beat up Magny's legs so bad, he forced Magny to shoot poor shots from outside, couldn't get any leg drive. Really easy for Larkin to see coming, and finally, on the last one, Larkin just lit up Magny's head with down elbows as Magny had his head on his hip, trying for a takedown he wasn't going to get, knocked him out. Beautiful, beautiful performance from Larkin. He looks like a real top 15 welterweight at this point in his career. And Magny is just, he's kind of, I don't know, he's doing that thing where he's beaten all the guys he's supposed to beat. And even, that Kelvin Gastelum and Hector Lombard wins, those are big, but he just doesn't seem to quite be making those moves that make him look like a real title contender. Gastelum put a scare into him late, hurt him. Hector Lombard put a scare into him early, hurt him. Eric Silva was able to make that a really tough fight on him. And Youngyu Lim put a scare into him early, hurt him. And we aren't seeing quite the consistency from Magny that makes him like he can beat a few good fighters on his best days, but it doesn't seem like he's quite the elite top-tier challenger yet that it maybe looked like he was going to be when he was rolling through the division and picking up, 7 wins in a row. So not a good showing for Magny at all there. Middle of the Fight Pass prelims, Colby Covington got a TKO over Max Griffin. Just a super dominant wrestling performance. maybe not the most thrilling thing if you're not a fan of good technical wrestling, but Covington still looks like a top flight athlete with a great wrestling base. And for as much as people argue about him being boring, he's finished 4 of his 5 UFC wins. So, he's not doing too much wrong as he builds a more complete game. His stand-up is still scary and bad, and man, he threw a flying knee in there that just had me seeing shades of Andrei Arlovsky's flying knee on Fedor, just straight up and down without any movement, primed to be plugged right at the top of it. But Griffin didn't have any of the technique to do it, and so Covington didn't pay for it. Still, good technical, solid win for Covington. Opening up the card, Marvin Vettori took a strong submission win over Alberto Uda. Vettori looked good, great scrambler, powerful submission game, really just able to overwhelm a kind of physically underwhelming fighter in Uda. Excited to see what Vettori can do as he continues to move forward with King's MMA. They seem to do well with really confident fighters like Vettori. Building them an aggressive striking game makes them really fun to watch. Vettori's striking is still his worst area, but I have faith that King's MMA might be able to mold that into something in the future. Going back to the main event, I'm still just on a complete rush over this. It was just an amazing fight. I think, for those who doubted McGregor after his first loss to Diaz, we saw him dig way down deep to come back in the 4th round after he lost the 3rd badly, and to stay competitive throughout the rest of the fight to take the win. And, for those who thought that McGregor was going to walk through Diaz this next time, as I saw a few people saying that, you got to realize how hard it is to beat the Diaz brothers at their own game. And McGregor tried hard to go in and outbox them. And, he even, like I said, he mixed in the leg kicks. He had the perfect stand-up striking game plan early, and it was still incredibly hard. He still barely got it done. Diaz came on late. Closed out, he won the last round. He feels like he won that fight. I'm looking forward to the idea that we could see a third one of these down the line, even if McGregor takes a couple other fights in the meantime, even if Diaz takes another couple fights in the meantime. This is a trilogy that I would love to see in the future, however it happens. So, you got a pay-per-view card that was 1, 2, 4 knockouts and a fantastic 5-round decision. Closed out prelims with a KO. Maybe a couple of boring, bad fights on those prelims, but that's just the prelims is supposed to be where the bad fights are. The pay-per-view is supposed to be where the good fights are. This pay-per-view was fantastic, super fun, flew by, loved every minute of it. So, on that note, this has been D. Zane Simon. You can find me on Twitter at D. Zane Simon, whatever. I'm getting all mixed up and done talking. D. Zane Simon on Twitter. You can find me over at Bloody Elbow. Give this video a like. That's a thumbs up down below on YouTube. Subscribe to our new YouTube channel. It's MMANation.com, DOTCOM, all spelled out. That's where all the latest videos, shows, analysis, all that good stuff is. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll have Knuckle Up coming at you soon. And then we'll be gearing up for the next fight card. I'm trying to remember what comes next. This is such a rush. It's got my mind just kind of blanked out. Let's see. Next up is UFC on Fox, Maia versus Condit. So obviously we'll be coming at you with a vivisection, care, don't care, if I did it, prospectus, heavy hands, all that good stuff for that show. That'll also be Anthony Pettis versus Charles Oliveira in the co-main event. Really looking forward to those top 2 fights. Card under it looks like a fun action card too. So we'll have everything to break down that. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.